Hi, Tyra Butler, licensed marriage and family therapist and the early career clinician coach. I'm here to share some wonderful information about how to get into a private or group practice while you're pre or provisionally licensed. So many counselors and therapists that I talk to who are early on in their career don't even realize that it's legal and ethical in their state with their licensing board to get into a private or group practice. They think that they have to slug their way through working, 40 plus hours a week at agencies or in community mental health clinics, just doing grueling work, having to see really um, uh, low functioning clients. A lot of the Medi-Cal, the county funded type programs who are, a lot of the clients and patients are in dire straits or just very, very difficult situations, homeless, um, with some pretty, significant severe diagnoses. I mean, literally interns and associates, when you're pre-licensed, you get thrown into, not really thrown, but it's essentially like that, put into situations work-wise where you're working with some of the least functioning, mentally, emotionally disturbed clients. Whereas in a private or group practice, you get to see clients who are all in throughout your community. You get to see those that are high functioning and yet just living day-to-day life with their regular everyday problems. A lot of it, relational, family conflict, a lot of ongoing issues, symptomatically with anxiety, depression. And you working in private practice really get to connect with and understand and learn about those issues that the majority of the public and the people in your community are facing and going through. And it may even tap into and relate to some of the struggles that you have personally. There may be some crossover there. And that can actually be such a blessing in disguise. You may think, oh my gosh, this client, they have the same kind of problems as me or something that I was dealing with a couple of years ago. And yet, what a blessing in disguise that can be, because it can help us work on our own issues. I can tell you an issue that I had that I didn't even know that I had early on in my career when I was an intern, fresh out of grad school. I noticed that a couple of the clients that I saw early on, this is during my traineeship, and it happened to be in a private practice type setting. It was a center, but it worked very much like a private practice, so I got that kind of training during my traineeship even. And I remember they had issues of anger. That was their presenting problem. And I could not relate at all. It felt so intimidating to me. Just even them talking matter of factly about their issues with anger, not even actively expressing it, emotionally at all. Just matter of factly telling me their issues with that, in a first session kind of situation. And that was so triggering for me. I didn't know it was triggering. I just knew I did not want to work with that client. That is so intimidating. There is something there that, whoa, I need to veer away from. But what I learned once I became an intern, upon graduation and working with more clients in actual private practice setting, I began to see that those issues early on that I was experiencing with not wanting to take on clients that were presenting with anger, I then realized that is an issue that I had within myself. It probably took a good year or two by the time I actually noticed and could acknowledge what that actual issue was. But it was something I had learned early on in my life to deny my own feelings of anger, to dismiss it, suppress it, and deny my anger. I found ways that where I could let it out at times, in my early adulthood, as a teenager, and yet I still had no ability to fully embrace my own feelings of anger. I was known as the sweet girl, I was the sweetheart, the sweetie. So feeling angry, expressing anger in its fullest form and full effect was not something I was intimately familiar with at all in my own self. But I didn't even see it or know it. It was something I was very unconscious to at the time. But a couple years forward, and it began unfolding more and more, I started seeing how that actually was not something that was healthy for me. I needed to be able to, over time, uncover little by little my own feelings of anger and what that was about, and how I had suppressed that, and it needed to come to the surface, and it needed to be seen and processed. And the only way I was able to do that was not only through pure therapy, although therapy helped me too, and I was in that all along and have been on and off, my professional career, but it was actually doing the work in private practice with my clients, and taking on and doing those initial consultation sessions and meeting with people day in and day out, that boom, my issues started surfacing more too. I thought I was so misled and misguided in certain ways in my life and dealing with my own emotions, that I actually thought, when I would sit with clients as a therapist, this is again very early on when I was a trainee, I thought I could set aside my own feelings, my personal perspective, opinions, feelings. And my supervisor so lovingly and kindly pointed out, hey, no, actually, the point is for you to feel your feelings and notice what is coming up for you, and and for that even to be utilized in the therapy sessions with the clients. What your emotional experience is, now I know that intimately is counter-transference, but I had to be taught all of that. And I didn't learn that in the other settings I was working in. I worked at an eating disorder clinic, a substance abuse treatment facility, all very part-time, in coinciding with my private practice. But it wasn't until I was working with clients in private practice, and it was that work that I was doing one-on-one with them, that allowed me to begin to see some of my own issues, some things that I had dismissed and denied in my own self. And actually, by being able to do that, it helped me become a better therapist overall with subsequent clients. So yes, those couple of clients, I was at a loss for how to work with them. But you know what? A couple years forward, and even now to this day, boom, anger is something that is very much a part of everybody's emotional experience, everybody's life, and it shows up in different forms. It may be slight annoyance, it may be full-blown rage, but point being that we can actually grow and learn more about ourselves. Layers can become unpacked and undone within ourselves, and it becomes such a beautiful process, because it's not that we're using our work for that very purpose. It's a caveat. So we work obviously to make money, to do good in the world, to fulfill our calling and our purpose, if that's what you feel doing therapy or counseling is about for you. But the caveat, like the dessert of all of it, is that we get to grow personally too. And I'm just telling you that personal little anecdote about myself, because I truly believe I wouldn't have been able to grow in that way or notice those things about myself just working in other capacities. It was only in the private practice setting that the slow, kind of calm, undone pace of private practice allows things to surface that just really don't in other types of settings. So if getting into this field, if there's any level of it for you about your own personal growth, I want you to know that working in a private or group practice allows that more so than any other kind of work setting in our field. Plus, you also get to make more money in private or group practice than you can in any other position in our field, particularly private practice. If you start in a group practice and you shift into a private practice, or if you get into a really great group practice, that's a different situation too. They're all unique and different. But you can really make more money per hour than you can in any other setting, and you're getting paid to do wonderful work with clients in your community that are fairly high functioning, with issues that you want to work with, that you want to see, people that you look forward to seeing, who you really get enriched by, in doing the work with them. It's just a beautiful benefit and kind of a big plus. So I wish that someone would have been able to tell me all of this, starting out. And that's one of the reasons why I created the services that I did, the blog, and all the coaching services, and ultimately why I created the online course, of how to get into a private or group practice while you're pre or provisionally licensed, a step-by-step guide to grow your caseload and hit the ground running. It's quite a mouthful, but it's truly what the course is about. And it will give you an edge to succeed, an edge in finding an ideal supervisor, in negotiating the highest pay that you can possibly earn at your stage of your career, and give you ways to earn more referrals, to get yourself out in the community, and build your own marketing momentum, so that you get those calls and those emails on a regular basis, and you're able to grow your own caseload and practice, so that by the time you're licensed, you have an established, thriving, growing practice that's already in momentum. So it's possible because I did it, and that's what I want to teach you to do too. So stay tuned, and thank you for listening. God bless.